Clay, welcome to another League of Legends video. This time we're going to be another episode in our replay analysis series, time focusing on a Zed Mid gameplay, so thank you for sending this in. Black Lotus 420. Appreciate it. If you don't know what this series is, this is where I watch replays sent in by you guys, the viewers, and try to provide some coaching and gameplay feedback to help you improve. If you're interested in submitting a replay to be featured on this series, feel free to send one to clayplaysreplayanalysis@gmail.com. I'll have a link below in the description if you can't remember that. I will pretty much accept replays from just about any replay program, but some I have more success with than others. I have had a tremendous amount of difficulty getting replays to work in the last month, so I apologize if you sent one in and it did not get covered. It is very, very likely that there was a bug or a glitch with one of the pretty much all the replay programs got hit really hard with the new updated patch, but things have kind of simmered down since then. That kind of tends to happen though, so I apologize for that. Feel free to send one in again. I encourage you to do that, and hopefully I'll be able to cover that. I also am in a much more stable place. I've got my computer set up now. We were moving throughout the holiday season, so a lot of craziness, but hopefully things should be a lot better now, and I should be able to hopefully get some better replay analysis going. So let's go ahead and watch this Zed gameplay. First thoughts is I really like the Zed matchup into Karthus, just because Karthus is going to have a difficult time keeping you away from him. Having a slows don't really do anything against Zed, because Zed has his W, which I believe is about like 500 or 600 unit gap closer, and also his ultimate, which is another like 400 or 500 units. So Zed can cover like 900 to 1,000 units of gap close just with his shadows. And Karthus can't really do anything about that. The slow, if you think about it, a slow doesn't do anything to stop Zed from using his shadow. So I really like the Zed into Karthus matchup. I would be really trying to pressure him pretty hard. You're doing a nice job of getting a lot of last hits. But the big thing here is, I think there's a really nice chunk of harass. That was really nice right there. So one of the big things you really want to do is focus on dodging Karthus' little skittles, his Qs. Force him to use those skittles on the wave, so you don't ever really want to stand next to your creeps. And then whenever he does use a skittle, know that that's a little bit of an opening there for you to go aggressive. And using your Q, especially, to try and poke him down is pretty much what you want to do with Zed. Get as many last hits as you can with your auto attacks, and then focus on using your Q to harass. Like, that's a really nice harass combo right there. And so doing a nice job too of telegraphing or responding to this gank, which got a little bit telegraphed. If we actually just watch this little series one more time, one of the things I want you guys to focus on is, and the player did a nice job. So right here, you can actually see that the Karthus is not really backing off, and you actually can see right here was the little Shaco clone, and you can see that Karthus is coming up and walling. This is a clear tell that he's trying to bait a gank, and you do a nice job of responding to that. I talked about baiting before in one of my other videos, but this is something that is really important to try and start to pick up on. So right there, if you think about Karthus, there's no reason in his right mind that a 75% health Karthus would want to just step forward and duel it out with a 100% health Zed. There's no way that Karthus is going to win that battle. You've got Ignite. Karthus has Ghost. Ignite, interesting choice. But anyways, you're going to win that battle pretty much 9 times out of 10. So the only reasonable thing there would be that he's getting a gank. So you did a nice job of responding to that. Now you're getting ganked again. Just going to use your shadow. That was nice. Fortunately, you did get caught by that fear, but Zed is pretty safe. Especially with somebody like Shaco, you do need to be a little cautious about using your shadow offensively, because whenever you use your shadow offensively, that means you cannot use it defensively. That's like one of the big windows to go in on a Zed. So once he's used his shadow, but you're doing a nice job of dealing with the harass and the gank pressure so far. CS has gone a little bit more even, but that's fine. Doing a pretty nice job of getting a lot of these last hits, which is really good. Right there, we went in. This is just a little, very, very minor detail, but right there, you chose to go aggressive. I'm going to try this. Oh, and also, guys, I got this new little pen tool, so check this out. So right here, you were standing over here. I'm going to just pause it and just show off this fun little tool I've got. Okay, so you were standing right here. There was creeps 1, 2, and 3, and then Karthus was right here. So you could have done one of two things. One was throw a Q right here, and then an auto attack, and you could have gotten these 3 last hits. But instead you WQ'd this way to get the harass down. Now, I'm not necessarily trying to argue that one choice is better than the other, but what I want to do is try to point out the strengths and weaknesses, the pros and cons of each one. So first and foremost is that this gold right here, this is gold that you can never get back, if that makes sense. So once these creeps are gone and you did not get them, that is gold that you will never be able to get back. Something like a tower is always going to be available to be taken. It never goes away. These towers are always available to be on the map. Whereas something like minions or dragons or barons, those are things that there's only a certain number of, right? So when you miss them, you give them up. Now this harass on Karthus, so that's kind of the disadvantage, is that this is gold that you can never get back. However, if you're trading that gold for some harass onto Karthus, you know, the biggest thing there is that Karthus is kind of a late game monster. He's kind of a hyper scaling mage. And so by trying to get some harass down on him, you can see right here that he's out of health potions. Also, one thing, I can't tell on this replay client, but one thing that you can do is actually if you click on your opponent, you can see up here, it'll tell you how many potions they have left in their inventory. And so with that, you can actually see, you know, how many potions he's got. So you're trading these minions for some health onto Karthus, and I think that's probably a good thing because it'll try to help hopefully push him out of lane. Pushing him out of lane would be a very, very good thing because he is such a hyper-scaling mage. So I don't know, it's kind of just something to weigh the pros and cons of. That when you choose to give up something like the minions, you're actually nice. Okay, very nice job there responding to that gank. When you give up those minions, you're trading it for health onto Karthus, which I guess ultimately gave you a kill. But it's also one thing to keep in mind. I think that one of the differences between lower elo and high elo is that in lower elo it's very easy to have this playstyle where you're kind of like farming champions, and if you just have a little better mechanics and a little bit better map knowledge, you can abuse vision, those types of things. You can really like terrorize people at low elo. But at the higher you get, I've kind of started playing against a lot of diamond players. I believe I'm currently like at the very high end of Plat 1. But when you get to that level, people don't make mistakes and they don't give up as many deaths. So getting a ton of CS is the most reliable and the most consistent way of getting yourself fed every single game. No matter what elo you're at, it's not a strategy that will wear out. It's not a cheese strategy. It's not something that will stop being effective at high elo. It's something that you can reliably do every single game. So it's something that I like to encourage, is just that idea that you're focusing really heavily on farming. I think that I don't actually know what elo this player is at, but for those of you that are struggling at low elo, like bronze, maybe the lower parts of silver, and you really are having a hard time getting out, I would just say straight up, if you can work really hard and focus on just farming, if you can become somebody who last hits really efficiently and you consistently get a very, very high creep score every game, I think that alone is something that can carry you out of bronze and silver. Whereas if you compare that to the farming of champions, that is something that is going to be a little bit more risky. Excuse me about that. So at this stage in the game, another gank attempt by Shaco. So that was a time where it could have been a little troublesome had Karthus responded a little bit better because you used your shadow. Just something to keep in mind. So at this stage in the game, you're probably going to be looking to back, which is smart. Now at this point with Zed, okay, I really like both of those purchases. Now another thing you maybe could have, and I probably would not have done anything differently with the gold you had. Let me just check. You really don't have much left over. So these are probably the best two purchases for Zed. They give you a ton of damage, a little bit of sustain, and the Bilge Water active is really nice for your ultimate because it basically doubles the damage. The 100 magic damage turns into 200 through the damage amp. And it also gives you the slow, which means you're going to get a lot more auto attacks off. It's going to be harder to get away, so it turns you into a really strong duelist. Okay, so at this point in the game, on Zed, you pretty much have two options, and one is to try and focus really hard on crushing your lane opponent. So that's, you know, with really, like, if you get really good at landing some nice, like, WEQs, and just getting a lot of poke right there, like that. That was a nice combo. So then you can really just focus on crushing your lane opponent 1v1. Or another option is to try and push and roam. So the idea with that is that Zed has a lot of free wave clear. Zed is one of the better melee wave clearers, you know, just because you can WEQ a wave and it'll like pretty much crush the whole thing down. So by abusing, okay, it looks like you're going aggressive. Okay, unfortunately, we ended up losing that duel. Let's actually watch this one more time in slow-mo, and then let me just finish my point here. So the other option is to push and roam. And one thing to look at is, whoa, what the world? AP Nasus, who knew? So if you look at how the other lanes are doing, it actually looks like bottom lane is doing pretty well. Tristana, Soraka, probably not a lot of kill pressure there, but top lane is probably a place where you could maybe pick up a kill. Nasus is pretty weak early on, especially with this like crazy weird build he's going. So I'd maybe try to push the lane out really quickly and then roam top to try to pick up some kills. But it does look like you have been doing a pretty good job of fighting your opponent. So now alright, so we actually end up dying there. I want to see if there's a way we maybe could have lived or used our abilities a little bit more efficiently. Now keep in mind that when I'm doing this type of analysis, I'm like really slowing down and going through this. Now when you do this in-game, you're making these decisions like on a split second. Okay, so you flash, and then you W. See, I kind of feel like just with this, let's pull out my handy-dandy little tool here. This is kind of exciting. So, I want to back this up. I just bugged it out. Okay, so you can see Karthus is in kill range. That was, oh, pause. You make the right determination here. So the question in this that I can see that's going on in your mind is, how do I get myself from right here to right here? Now, what I believe you chose to do is flash, and then you walked a little bit, and then you W'd. Now your flash isn't actually up at this point. Let's keep going a little bit further. Okay, so we flash, and it looks like your ultimate didn't quite, or your flash didn't quite get you in range to ult. So then we use our W. Okay, so let's go back to our pen. So we want to back this up one more time. So what I'm trying to do is really evaluate how we could have used our abilities more optimally to try to secure this kill. Okay, so right here when we flashed, I maybe would have preferred to see you use your W, because I wonder if you would have used W and then ult, if that maybe could have gotten you in range, because flash doesn't actually have a tremendously high range. I'm trying to find the moment where you use your shadow, because at this point you're like just outside of ult range, and so now you choose to use your shadow. But see, look at how close the shadow places you. So what you're doing, so this is where you were, this is where your shadow gets you, and then you ult this far. So this right here is wasted distance where you could have used your ultimate to gap close. So basically is if you would have instead kind of start at here, W to here, and then use your ultimate to get to here, if that makes sense. Then I don't necessarily think that you needed to flash. Then we can save our flash, use your W and your ultimate to the full range to try and save and secure that summoner spell. And then when we actually get into the duel, I feel like you used all of your abilities properly. Yeah, everything looks fine there. Now one of the problems is that because you didn't use the full length of the gap close on your ult, when you go back to your ult shadow, it actually was still in tower range. And then unfortunately Shaco was here. So I think the big thing there to take away is just the simple idea of getting the maximum amount of gap close and distance on your ult, or on your W and your ult, because they both have quite a bit of gap close range on them. So I think that maybe would have been one way that you could have optimized that a little bit better. I understand that when you flashed, you had hoped that you could close the gap entirely, and that's just it was a little bit unlucky. But part of that is probably just a little bit game sense too. You know, playing a lot of a specific champion will really help you master. And like if you play like 100 games of Zed, you will just know exactly how much distance you can gap close, and you won't necessarily have to guess, and you won't make mistakes like that. Just something that'll come with experience. I would still probably be looking to be a little bit aggressive on this Karthus here. As Zed, you have so much mobility with your ult and your W that it's going to be difficult for him to land a lot of Skittles. Also, he's gone for the standard, but also a very greedy build, which is Tear into Rod of Ages. And so think about, like, Karthus has almost no combat stats right now. He's invested so much gold into mana that I don't necessarily think... Okay, so it looks like we go aggressive. That was pretty much perfect. Pretty well played right there. Karthus is just not respecting your execution range. So that was really good. I like that you used your bilge. Pretty optimal use of your abilities. Overall, pretty well done. So that's getting you to 3-1. Pretty strong right now. See Nasus coming in. So it's AP Nasus. That is something I see on ARAM quite a bit, but not so much on Summoner's Rift. I wonder if they're going to lane swap. They probably actually would be pretty smart, because Nar's pretty weak. Okay, so they decided to lane swap you, which is fine. I think that against Nasus, you might not have a ton of kill pressure just because he's kind of naturally tanky. He's got a lot of poke with this stupid Wither or Spirit Fire spam. It's a little bit cheesy. So against Karthus, you were pretty strongly in like the I want to 1v1 my lane opponent camp, and now against Nasus, I think maybe switching your tactic to like the push and roam strategy might be a little smarter. But I'll leave that to, we'll see how that kind of goes. Another thing is I like that you're trying to take these jungle camps. Zed does jungle monsters really fast because he has so much AoE. Now, one thing to be mindful of is that you really want to try and... I think doing this dragon is fine. You really do want to be mindful, though, of where your jungler is at because of the jungle changes in, I think, 420. It really, especially the increase of the respawn timers on jungle monsters has increased, so that means that there's less uptime on jungle camps. It means you do want to be a little cautious about when you decide to take camps from your jungler, because that means that there is a fair amount less resources on the map for them to have. But given the fact that you guys went and did dragon, red buff is up, golems are up, I think that was fine. It's just something to be aware of. I like that as a mid laner you're trying to get really farmed, and taking jungle camps is a way that you can definitely help do that. But just keep in mind that there are trade-offs. So was going to say, I'd be a little cautious about really securing that crab, just because when you ran through that Shaco box, their entire team knows exactly where you are. But you've done a nice job of kind of doing what I was saying a little bit earlier about the whole pushing and roaming. So you've been keeping track of these waves. You've been getting all these creeps for free just because Zed has such good wave clear. And now I think it is... Okay, getting some nice poke down. It's AP Nasus, man, just crushing it. But even though you have 3 kills, you also have the highest creeps in the game, which is really a good thing. That's something you really want. Maybe part of it is just my own personal bias, but I've always been the player that really enjoys farming. Nice job getting that kill there. And then that was probably fine to just back out. I think that the Aldenar actually traded his life, so that's fine. 3 for 2 overall, but okay. I will comment just briefly on. So I actually don't have. I don't know the in detail intricacies. Oh, but I like this all in. Okay, that was really nice. So I don't know the in detail intricacies of the really optimal perfect Zed build. So what you did is you got Brutalizer and Bilgewater, finished Ghostblade, and now finished Blade of the Ruin King. So these 2 items really focus on Zed as the duelist, rather than as opposed to something like if you had gone for a Hydra and a Brutalizer and a Last Whisper, which is really focuses on Zed as the burst assassin. So with this build, you really want to try and find 1v1s. I think that the big takeaway with my point here is that it isn't necessarily that one build is better or worse than the other, because I really do think that experienced Zed players will tell you that both are probably fine. But the big thing is that they just offer different strengths and weaknesses. So this build is going to be better in a raw 1v1, whereas the other build, flat AD and armor pen build, is probably going to be a little bit better in like a burst the target down in 2 seconds type situation. Going on a little hunt for Karthus here. Maybe would have preferred that you had just given up and gone mid. I think there was a wave there to collect. Looks like a lot of it went to Soraka. Just to kind of, I don't know, reiterate some of what I had said earlier about the most reliable way to get fed is to focus on creep score. But I also think pushing and roaming, especially on an assassin like Zed, is really good. Okay, the use of Ghostblade there to try and close the gap. That's fine. Ghostblade actually has a pretty slow cooldown, so I'm not really opposed to it. A little bit of trouble here. Okay, I think you're going to get Shaco. Yep. So that was pretty well done. I think Shaco might have been a risky target just because I think if Shaco had been... There's like a chance that Shaco would have saved his Deceive. But I like that you went on the Shaco instead of the Thresh. Just because... although I guess, to be honest, at this point it doesn't necessarily matter. Been using the active on your Ghostblade for the move speed quite a bit, which is fine. I don't necessarily have a problem with that. But I do think that there maybe are times when saving it for a duel with your ult makes you pretty unstoppable in a 1v1. Now this goes back to the point I said earlier, but I really like the fact that you are staying off in a side lane like you are. I think that you're doing a nice job of really capitalizing on the strengths of your build. Interesting choice with the Boots of Swiftness. I can see why you would do it, but I think I maybe would have gone with something else, and here's why. This goes to what I said a little bit earlier about why slows aren't really that good against Zed. Okay, now it looks like we're going for the all-in. I think you got him. Yep, nice job. Pretty well done. And now I think with some good use of your shadow, you should be able to get out of this situation. No. Okay, that's fine. Maybe not. Maybe could have tried to be a little bit more creative with, you know, this is definitely something that, but you were kind of in this area, and you knew that you had one coming from this direction and one coming from this direction. I maybe would have tried to do a little bit of a shadow juke. You know, what you can do is leave a shadow in this bush, head this direction, and then there is, I believe, a little bit of an indication between, but if they don't actually see you put that shadow in place, you could, you know, head this way, and then when they commit to this area, then you switch back to your shadow and run that way. Just a small thing that maybe could have helped, but overall that's not necessarily a bad thing. You are drawing a lot of pressure up top, and as a split pusher, drawing pressure is a really important part of that. Now whether or not your team follows up on it is up to them, and that's kind of where I think split pushing requires that you know, one of the interesting things is I think that people will, in their minds, play a split push because they think, oh, you know what, okay, interesting, using the Ghost Blade again. Maybe would like, I guess it's probably fine, but I don't know, part of me would wonder if maybe it would be smarter to save the Ghost Blade for the duels rather than just to run into lane, but I don't think it's a really big problem. But so split pushing, a lot of people will say it doesn't really require a lot of teamwork, but I think that maybe is false. I think that split pushing in some ways requires even more teamwork because it requires that your 4-man team be coordinated and also be paying attention to where you are, and you need to be paying attention to where they are and where the enemy team is. Like, it's a little bit different than whereas I think grouping as 5 is a little bit more straightforward, just from the fact that you just group and then you kind of know what to do from there. Alright. Nice job picking up those kills where you can. One thing about Zed is that he's a little bit more ult reliant than other targets. But I don't necessarily think you could have gotten that kill without using your ult, so I'm fine with that. I don't know if I ever finished my point though about the boots of swiftness. I maybe would have preferred CDR boots, and here's why. I think that with these slows, obviously they have a lot of slows in the enemy team, which I can see why you made your choice. Nasus, Karthus, Shaco, they each have slows. Other than Thresh, they don't really have a lot of ways to... See, that's a really good use of the Ghost Blade, to take a tower. But other than Thresh, they don't really have a lot of lockdown to like stun you. But I also think that slows aren't really that good against Zed, so I maybe would have preferred CDR boots, just because CDR boots means your W is up more often and your ult is up more often, and so like what I said earlier about Zed being very ult reliant to have kill pressure, this is a little bit less true with the duelist build you've gone, but I think that's still pretty true compared to somebody like Talon, or maybe LeBlanc is a little different. Okay, I don't think you maybe needed to flash there. I think maybe your W and your Ghost Blade would have been enough, but it's fine. Better to be safe than sorry. I would rather that you use your flash when you don't need to than to not use it when you should and die. Whenever you, I always, in my mind, whenever you can use a flash to either secure or deny a kill, it's worth it. Alright, so the team fight is here. I think you maybe could have gone for one of those kills there. I guess if you had gotten CC locked, you probably would have died, but I think you maybe could have gone for it. That Draven was pretty low. He pretty much only needed like an ult and an EQ, and I think he would have been dead. But see, this is kind of where, you know, because you used your flash up top, that means you are less able to make play. I guess you're going to probably get it anyways. Nice use of your Ghost Blade. See, now I really like the way you're using your Ghost Blade in a fight or to win a duel. That's really what makes Ghost Blade so good on Zed. But overall, you've done a nice job in this mid game. I like that you're really trying to create a lot of pressure across the map with your split pushing. Now, it looks to me like Lee Sin and Gnar are trying to get the dragon, which is it's a good choice, I think, for you to come top, because what it does is it forces the enemy team to come to you. And then if they send people up to you, that means the dragon's pretty much free. Now, at this point, now another thing to keep in mind though is when you are split pushing, I think it's really recommended to buy some wards, and this is exactly why. Ooh, very close. Okay, so that was really unfortunate, but very close. So when you're split pushing this lane, it's really important to get a ward either in this bush or this bush. I think that it's so crucial to have some wards in this area. I really specifically like this bush because it will see if anyone's coming from this way, or even this way to come kill you. Those are the 3 avenues from which you can get flanked, and by warding that area, it really makes it impossible for that to happen. And you had a ward in your inventory. Now I know that this pink ward is more for like if you're going to sit up in this bush right here, or something like, or maybe like this bush and in kind of like bush camp, wait for somebody to walk by and then blow them up. But I think that it would be better for you if you're going to commit to split pushing this top lane to try to get some vision down almost before you go split push. So like when you're in this area, it's really smart to try and drop a quick ward before you loop up and around so that you're safe from getting flanked. I've played a fair amount of Tryndamere when I have, I guess, been split pushing. And so whenever I do that, I almost always will buy 1 or 2 green wards, because I personally think it's really, really, I mean, Tryndamere or Zed or champions like that are really hard to beat in a 1v1, but even more so when they are protecting themselves from getting flanked, because that's basically the only way. And the only reason you got killed there is because you got surprised. So if you can eliminate that with just a strategic choice, I mean, why not make it? You know, there's no reason not to. Now, at this point, you are running out of inventory space, so not a lot that can be done about that. You know, at some point, you're going to be 6 items. Now, I know that at higher levels of play, having the red trinket is really, really good because it denies vision. But, and maybe this is just a personal thing, but I've always favored the yellow trinket even into the mid and late game. This is probably a lot driven by just personal preference, not necessarily because it's a better choice. I think that the higher you get, vision denial is really strong. But at lower elos, and especially if you're going to commit to this heavy split push, I think warding your flank is maybe something to consider. So I guess what I'm saying is to try and think about the strengths and weaknesses. You know, the yellow trinket is stronger in protecting you from getting flanked so that you can't die, but the red trinket allows you to potentially make more plays. Nice, so that was perfect right there. Between your W and your Ghost Blade, using that to drop pressure and then sit in this bush, I actually would not recall here. I know you're probably sitting on a ton of gold, but I would sit and wait. Because, yep, see right here, this probably would have been a free kill. Just a thought. One of the things that, if you watch split pushing in some high elo streams, is they will do that, where they'll sit up in a bush. Okay, really minor thing, but sitting in base to, I know you're probably deciding what to get. I saw you get a Negatron and then switch it out for a Chain Vest. Is fine, but it really is a good idea to try and buy your items very quickly. So it looks like you got the kill eventually anyways, but buying your items very quickly means you're on the map even more, so you have even more map pressure. Can be really powerful, I think. Okay, I'm going to talk about your items real quick. Now, I think personally, I would have maybe preferred an Infinity Edge to a Bloodthirster, just because one reason, well, the main reason why I like Infinity Edge in this instance is because you've got Ghostblade. I think that if you're going to go with a Ghostblade, getting an Infinity Edge makes a lot of sense, because then your 15% crit chance becomes, and the attack speed from Bork and the Yomu's active becomes even more valuable. Whereas when you go Bloodthirster, I don't necessarily think that Ghostblade is as strong, because Ghostblade, so you've got attack speed here, you've got attack speed here, you've got crit here. So attack speed and crit work together really well. The more attack speed you have, the more opportunities you have to crit. But then going flat AD, you're kind of putting your eggs in two different baskets, I guess. You know, so if you kind of, I'll just pause and finish my thought here. If you kind of compare and contrast your two options, one would be like a pure flat AD burst build. So it'd be like Hydra, Bloodthirster, Black Cleaver, Last Whisper. So like maximum amounts of flat AD and armor pen. And so the idea there is that you're going to burst down a squishy like Draven or Karthus or Shaco in like 2 seconds. But with this build, you've got Yomu's, which gives you crit and attack speed. You've got Bork, which gives you attack speed and an on-hit. Getting an Infinity Edge makes the attack speed and the crit chance and the on-hit even better, and it makes you an even better duelist. So if you're going to be split pushing like this, the auto attacks are going to be really important, because you may not be able to kill your opponent in one burst, whereas I think for team fighting or grouping, the burst build is maybe a little bit better. So I guess I would just maybe encourage you to weigh the pros and cons and consider an Infinity Edge instead of a Bloodthirster, just for its synergy both with Yomu's Ghostblade and with the split push playstyle you've gone for, which will be a little bit more auto attack focused. Okay, so one thing I did notice is you upgraded your trinket, which I really like, because that prevents you from getting... But see, now this goes back to my point earlier, is I don't know if you're going to die here or not, but the upgraded red trinket does help you make a play against Shaco, but the yellow trinket, keeping this warded would mean you don't get hooked right here. You see, so your flash actually gets wasted, and your W is fine, and your Ghostblade, so you might end up making it out alive. Okay, so I think you could have prevented this death with just warding. Now I realize you've got a full 6 items, but that's kind of where I would find that the yellow trinket maybe could have prevented some deaths. The red trinket certainly will help you make plays, but I guess I also think that the yellow trinket in providing your team vision, specifically vision on your flanks, is really powerful. I'm going to fast forward through this just because I'm not as interested in your allies as I am you. One thing to also keep in mind about Zed in this situation is that you have a lot of really good squishy targets. Nasus has gone straight AP glass cannon. Shaco is really squishy. Now you're easily able to one-shot pretty much any target you want, so you maybe could have thought about grouping a little bit more than you did. But you have done a lot of work on this top lane. You've got the... Okay, it looks like everybody quit out, so overall I think you did a nice job. Can't really think of anything that really comes to mind other than when split pushing, I maybe would have liked to see the Infinity Edge to pair up with the Yomu's and make you even more formidable in a 1v1. Maybe would have preferred the CDR boots instead of the Swifties, just because I don't necessarily think slows were a problem. And for Zed, who has so much gap closing, slows aren't really a problem. And then I also think keeping wards in this part of the map would have really prevented some deaths. And also, I think at some point, I don't know if you reached that, I still am not exactly sure why. I think you guys could have come back and win this game, just personally, but I think that grouping would not have been a terrible choice, just because you have so many potential targets They didn't really have much of a front line. So anyways, though, thank you for sending this replay. If you have one yourself you want to send in, feel free to. Again, the link will be in the description below. It's clayplaysreplayanalysis@gmail.com. Feel free to let me know your thoughts on my new pen, and I'll see you guys again soon. Bye.